As I mentioned earlier, I just celebrated my 4th month of using Voyager. As Steve and many of you know, I kind of avoided automation software for a long time. Felt the need to have hands-on, and but once I actually took a look at Voyager, and I guess I had some early bad experience with Sequence Generator Pro, and I'm not saying that it's a bad program, and used properly is probably very good, but I myself had a hard time learning it, and it just kept crashing on me, and it was probably my fault, but so I got kind of turned off for a long time, and but then Gabe introduced us to Voyager here, and I took a look at the trial, and boy, was just really impressed. And what I'm going to try and do tonight is obviously we don't have enough time to go through all of the features of Voyager, and I myself, am still a novice, and use it. I'm learning something. Even putting this presentation together, I learned a whole bunch of things about Voyager. But it's a very, very powerful tool. And it was interesting that the other night when we had that first Wednesday night, I looked at my slides and I was just kind of going to jump right into all of the operational stuff. But somebody last Wednesday asked, well, what is Voyager? What does it do? How does it fit in with all of the pieces and parts? So that got me thinking that to approach this at a little bit higher end first, and talk about some overall architecture, and just what is the workflow, and then certainly we'll get into dialog boxes and settings and some of the more basic features that I use that has really I tell you has changed my life. I mean, I now feel like I could do a commercial on Voyager. It's been extremely reliable, and literally in the 4 months of using it, regardless of all of the stupid things that I initially did the first month, I could never get the software to crash. I mean, it's never hung up on me. It's never, it's given me nasty warnings and foghorns and all kinds of alerts that says that I was, doing things that, weren't proper. And I guess that's actually a built-in feature. There's a lot of what's called the watchdogs in Voyager that, when you do go astray, it lets you know, pretty obviously. And so, just kind of stepping back, I try to explain Voyager as being kind of an umbrella over my entire telescope and observatory. Clearly, its backbone, like what we're all used to now, is ASCOM. All of the devices that connect to Voyager basically do it via ASCOM. The one thing that made the transition into Voyager easy for me was I am a SkyX user and a PhD2 user and a FocusMax user. I don't use FocusMax anymore ever since I discovered the focusing routine in Voyager, which I think is every bit as good, if not better, than FocusMax, and it's integrated right into Voyager. So if I would have backed up 3 months, there would have been another box here called FocusMax, and so. What was nice about Voyager is I didn't have to abandon SkyX and PhD2 and FocusMax. Voyager works seamlessly with all of those third-party third-party softwares. And so that kind of weaned me into the automation world without having to, with having some training wheels, so to speak. But obviously, Voyager can talk to all of the pieces and parts to your mount, your imaging, guide cameras, focuser, weather sensors, safety monitors, all these components. And there's another kind of satellite component also sold by the Voyager, that is sold by Voyager as well, and that's something called Viking. Now, I haven't used it yet, just started researching it, but it's going to allow me to interface with all of the switches and motors and controls that I'm planning on using for the automation of my dome. And so Viking is that extra component that allows you to do all these I/O operations, input/output operations, and kind of interface with the digital and analog world. And so my goal is to be able to visit my son in McFarland and still do imaging. I used to have that capability on my previous observatory, where I could log into the observatory, open up the roof, start an imaging session, and literally when I came back into town, I could actually just look at the data. So this is the kind of the general overview. So look at Voyager as an umbrella over all of the pieces and parts that are associated with your telescope and observatory. Before we get too far into it, Voyager is not a freebie. Basically, it costs 129 euros. And as of March 9th, with the exchange rate, Voyager is going to cost you about $179. Viking is only about 59 euros. And so, in reality, I think in general, astronomical software is really underrated in with respect to what people charge for it. For all the things that Voyager does, $179 seems incredibly reasonable. So.
Dennis, is there an annual fee?
No, it's a one-time fee. It's a perpetual license. And I'm actually going to go over, there's a lot of things that go away after 1 year with relative to personalized support. But no, it's a perpetual license. And Leonardo, the main author of all the software, just a hell of a nice guy, and he's got an incredible background. And me being a newbie, he even made changes to the software because I was having some interface issues with PhD 2 not coming up fast enough. And he actually made it programmable. He does these daily builds, just like, I don't know if they come out daily, but they're called daily builds that are, in between the major releases, just pretty much like SkyX and some of the other software that we're familiar with. And but boy, within a week, he put in that change, and I downloaded the daily build, and boy, there it was, a little checkbox that allowed me to change the timeout timing when interfacing with PhD 2. For me, what's important is reliability. Because that's what turned me off initially with Sequence Generator Pro. How well the software is laid out, its GUI and the workflow, but then support. for, for a person like me who needs a lot of support. It's nice to have forums and direct contact, literally with the author of the software. I just grabbed a couple things from the website. Here's Leonardo here. He's the main author. As you would expect, the list is very comprehensive of all the things, that all the cameras and mounts and focusers and rotators, and it supports 3 or 4 different databases for plate solving, dome control, weather stations. I mean, you name it. And one of the nice things is if you're trying to interface something to it, and it is, adhering to the DICOM standard, then you're going to have a really good chance of having that third-party integration, work smoothly. This again is from the website. I mean, there are some of these things that I don't even know what they are, but they sound like something that I will eventually learn. But the things that that I have already found to be really important, and boy, when I first saw this, I thought this was just a kind of a marketing pitch, no crash coding system. But on the next slide, I'll show you how Leo does that, and so he uses a multi-thread architecture that basically kind of preserves the core of Voyager, so that things can crash around it, but not bring down Voyager itself. And for those of us who love to do flat fields, this can be completely automated with Voyager, and it'll even adjust the exposure times and make sure you get the right intensity levels of your flats, and it supports a whole host of flat field devices and so on and so forth. These watchdogs, literally associated with each component within, basically are things that are kind of overview pieces that look for things to go out of whack and to exceed parameters, or your telescope has gotten too low, or you're getting you had so many failures, and so you'll see what I mean. As we look at all of the pieces and parts that you connect, there are typically some watchdogs associated with them. But there's just a whole host of other things. RoboClip is something we'll talk about tonight as well, which I really have fallen in love with. I'm not a programmer. I managed a lot of programmers in my life, but never touched the code myself. But there is a really simple to use programming languages, which is all drag and drop. I'll show you some examples of that as well, called DragScript. Can set up now, once I get my dome automated and I don't have to go outside and rotate it, and once I roll it off, I can now set up multiple targets, and basically just from dusk to dawn, let Voyager do literally all the work. Okay. So this is what Leo calls his nonstop architecture. I think this is really cute. Again, this is from his website. And again, I'm not a programmer, and I'm pretty sure this will make sense to a lot of you. But the way he architects this software is there's a core thread that is basically the heart of Voyager. But he does everything possible to protect the core software. And so each of these other, peripheral, applications that are running, the mount, the guiding, all of these things are running on separate threads. And so if the guiding goes, it doesn't bring down Voyager. Voyager, puts out its alerts and says, hey, this particular component's not working. It'll even send you text messages and email if you don't get enough of those already, telling you, what's going on. So, this was pretty impressive to me. And boy, and I'm proof in the pudding. Early on, if I couldn't crash it, nobody can. And so I think this is more than when he talks about it being reliable architecture. That's not only important for me, but I think it's far more than just a marketing ploy. The other thing that I was really impressed with is the support. Voyager is an international software package. And the folks on the forum are from literally all over the world. And so the forum is very robust and lots of users. And Leo himself is the man must not sleep, because he is always on the forums, and he responds directly to emails. I've emailed him with questions directly. And what's nice is getting you going. And I take it, if you're not up and running in a year, you probably shouldn't be using the software anyway. But he will actually Skype and WhatsApp with you. So for the first 90 days, you get 2 1-hour sessions of real-time interface, with the support staff, which is typically Leo. And then after that, you get 2 1-hour sessions during the first year, to help you create, some of your custom automation and DragScript. And so, boy, this kind of support is extremely important, to me. Not everybody has a Gabe to ask questions with. And what is it, Gabe? You've been using Voyager for 2 years now?
Yeah, about 2 years. Yeah.
About 2 years. Yeah. So clearly our resident guru. But support is important. The other thing that was important to me is having a flexible and expandable workflow. I'm not quite there at multiple targets and all that kind of stuff, but I have slowly built up this workflow over the last couple months, where now literally the only thing that I do for an evening after I've done some planning, and there's some really nice planning software that's certainly available from Gabe, but in also framing your objects and building a database of future objects with a system called RoboClip, which I'll briefly show you. Really makes the framing and the launching of Voyager extremely simple. And so right now I've been kind of building up. I actually do this workflow now with a very elementary DragScript. You can do all of this, most of this in just running what's called a sequence, which is probably what you're familiar with in Sequence Generator Pro. But right now, I wait for astronomical sunset. Actually, I wait until about 30 minutes before astronomical sunset, kind of get things going, get the equipment connected, get the cameras cooled, and then Voyager will actually wait for the actual astronomical sunset, before taking that first picture. But my simple workflow right now is I wait for sunset, astronomical sunset, connect the equipment, get all the cameras, get the camera cooled, unpark the scope, send it to its home position, slew to the target. Voyager has a really nice focusing system. Get telescope all focused. It picks the guide star and through PhD2, gets PhD2 going and stabilized, and then starts running these acquisition sequences. And then at the end of the evening, it stops the auto guiding, parks my telescope, warms up the cameras, disconnects all the equipment, but I still have to go outside and close the dome. So that's that last piece that I'm working on. But literally at this point, when I open up the dome at dusk, and I actually turn on the power from inside. I have a remote power system. Literally Voyager orchestrates the entire evening for me. Okay. And I do that simple sequence. You can manually start a sequence and do all these things manually. Certainly in Voyager, you can there's a section I'll show you called On the Fly, where you can focus, take pictures, preview pictures. So you can do all of this, all of those steps manually. And then when it comes to the actual sequence of, running, all your filter sequences. But one of the nice things that I always fell short on is I have Voyager programmed to refocus, every, I think 1.5 degrees on the change. I used to have that at 2, and sometimes if it was a good Netflix series, I'd wait until 3 degrees or 4 degrees, and then end up having to throw out subs that weren't optimally focused. So Voyager at a minimum has kept me honest, and it actually will focus with the current filter, and if there's a filter change, it'll focus for that, and so literally the quality has improved in my work based on the rules that I've set up within Voyager. But DragScript is not a programming language by any. You basically have all of these functions, like connect the equipment, wait for astronomical sunset, and it's all drag and drop. You pick something out of the menu, you drag it over here into the scripting area. You double click on it, and a very nice, obvious dialog box will pop up asking you to fill in the things that you need to fill in. My kind of programming, and then I'll actually show you my little modest script. But it does everything in that flowchart that I just showed you, and I plan on expanding that to if halting things if there's cloud cover or when one object becomes unavailable, automatically going to a second object and start a whole new sequence on that object. Okay. The focusing system within Voyager is called RoboFire. I was one of the beta testers on Focus Max 4, and so I actually was able to see and learn the whole development cycle for Focus Max 4, and if you look at the setup menus and everything, and the V curve generation, all very, very similar to Focus Max. 2 different focusing modes. If you have a small central object, you can set it up for a single central star focus, or if you're photographing a full field of view nebula, you can actually do multiple star local field focusing, and both of these work really well. I actually prefer using, the single star method, but you can choose and mix and match if you like. If you're doing one object with one kind of object, you may want to do single star, but then switch over to multi-star. Okay. I've just started trying to learn about this, so this I know very little about, other than the fact that, again, I know a lot of my friends and colleagues do a lot of their own programming and interfacing, with relays and motors and sensors and all of that stuff. None of that is in my wheelhouse. And so it's really got to be off the shelf to me. And so Viking actually provides that interface and interfaces with a whole potpourri of hardware devices, switches and intelligent power controllers and all kinds of stuff. But you can essentially it's your I/O interface without having to be a programmer, and so this is going to be pretty essential to me for controlling the motors and the switches, within my observatory. I'll actually show you this when we get there, but this is, I think, one of the neatest features, in addition to all the other features. There's what's called a web dashboard, and so you can monitor what's going on over the web of Voyager. But within this dashboard is two really incredible functions. One is this virtual field of view that will allow you. It knows about your telescope and your field of view, allows you to do your framing. And then pre-store all these objects in a database, such that when you go to run your sequence in Voyager, literally all you have to do is click one button. There's your whole list of all your predefined objects, and then you just click that, and you're ready to go for the evening. The other thing, and I'll show you this, and it's very nicely done. Is also the ability to do mosaics, and not only can you do the mosaics, but when you bring up an image here, you actually have control over the stretching of the image, and so you can actually really stretch the image if you're wanting to bring out some faint nebulosity and that type of stuff. It's not just a canned image that you try to frame around. You can actually do some image adjustments. But I'll show you this in real time. Okay, so before I jump into Voyager, any kind of general overview questions? Because what I'm going to do now is just kind of step through the workspace of Voyager and look at some of the setup dialogues, and I actually have my observatory live right now, and the dome's closed, and because the sky and the weather is not very good, which is unfortunate because we could have done some live acquisitions and stuff tonight. But that doesn't, the luxury that I have is I can move the telescope. The telescope has 100% freedom within the dome, so there's no collisions. So I don't need to put the telescope in a park position. So I can actually turn on, Voyager can actually turn on and connect all of my pieces and parts in the observatory, and we can see everything running live. Just that there's no stars to take pictures of, just lens caps tonight. But any questions before I actually jump into Voyager itself? All right, I put everybody to sleep. That's great. It's amazing how you can all be still sitting up in your chairs and be sound asleep at the same time. It's great. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this. And so I just opened up Voyager. I haven't really done anything. This is just the, you know, the starting workspace. This will all come alive and get filled with all kinds of good stuff. Please don't hesitate to ask. You know, when I open up these dialog boxes, you know, my gosh, there's 10, 20, 30 different choices of things to check. I'm not going to drill down on every setting. I'm basically just going to give a quick overview that this tab is for setting up your mount, and here are some of the options. One of the nice things I want to tell you about ahead of time, and I think this was designed just for folks like me, is, you know, you've got all these check boxes and numbers to fill in. And what Voyager does is it color codes the entries such that if it's a statement in black with a checkbox next to it, yeah, go ahead and check it. Nothing's going to happen. It's what's called a safe choice, right? And so those entries, or those dialogue entries, are all in black. Now, if you see a checkbox and it has some yellow text associated with it, it's just a polite reminder that says, you're not going to break anything, but you should check this option or change these numbers with caution. You know, so just like when you're coming up to an intersection, if the light turns yellow, you want to be a bit cautious. And then there are options, and you'll see some of them that are in red. That says, grasshopper, if you make the wrong choice, you will crash and die. And so it, you know, it gives you that kind of, you know, support mechanism that makes you think twice about making settings. Okay, I have yet to touch a red setting. Okay, and I feel a little queasy just doing the yellows. So, but I've never touched a red setting yet. I've used just the defaults. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I got a little list here. So what I'm going to do is just like anything else, just like Sequence Generator Pro. You know, you're going to literally set up all of your hardware. And you know, what you know, are you going to use any peripheral third-party stuff? You're going to use native features within Voyager, and so you see all of these tabs, basically starting with the, you know, the basic stuffs, the camera, the mount, the guiding, planetarium. You know, what plate solve system do you want to use? How do you want to focus? Do you have a rotator? Do you have a flat screen, flat field device? Dome control. As you get farther along here, these are things that I haven't used yet, and haven't, because I just don't have any of the hardware associated with monitoring, observing conditions, weather, safety monitors. And then this Viking, this Voyager tab here. Basically, it's just all of the native stuff. You know, what, you know, where do you want to store your files? You know, what colors do you want to use, and alerts, and so on and so forth. So, like any software package, there's always, you know, how do you set the look and feel.
Hey, Dennis.
Yeah.
I missed which icon you pressed to come into this setup form.
For the oh yeah, it's this little
okay, the gear, and okay, yeah,
not the gear, but it's a wrench and a screwdriver.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. All right. And so the only time you're ever going to go in here, this is something that you do when you first purchase Voyager, and you identify for Voyager, you know, all of the hardware, all the pieces and parts that you're connecting to. You know, what kind of filter wheel do you have? what are the names of your filters. Now, because I'm actually working through, and boy, you know, call me lazy, but because I had set up all of this stuff, all of the camera drivers and the filter names and everything in SkyX, Voyager is smart enough to get all of that information from SkyX. And so for the camera, instead of actually going to this long list and picking out, my particular type of camera, basically I said, nah, I've already done that. And so I'm using the SkyX camera add-on. And so everything that I set up in SkyX, what camera, all the settings, what filter names, everything basically automatically gets brought over into Voyager. And so it's kind of the easy route for me, and it also provides that pacifier of using software that I'm already familiar with. So I had to do nothing here. It filled in everything. It knew about my pixel sizes. It knew about my camera resolution. And so, boy, I really kind of lucked out with this one. Once I selected SkyX camera add-on, I think the only thing that I added was what the focal length was of the telescope, and that was it. Okay. And basically, the cooling system, you can actually set up and you can modify this in DragScript. If I'm not using DragScript and I just want to go to a sequence, directly and just run it manually, I can set up what my default cooling is here. I set it at -15 degrees. But this was a pretty easy setup for me. Same thing goes for the mount, because I basically running my mount through SkyX. So here are these red dangers. So you see this combination. The mount basically has the most risks associated with it. Gosh, why would you ever ignore tracking status? And in fact, Leo will even put in parentheses, "Are you sure?" And so this is an example of the red, yellow, and black settings. So again, I'm not going to go through every line, but guiding again. Basically Voyager does have its own robo guiding system, but because I like PhD2, I selected, so you can use Max DL, PhD2, even the focusing within or the guiding, I'm sorry, within SkyX. But I'm most comfortable with PhD2. You can set up, what your initial conditions are, with respect to, how long your exposure times are and that type of stuff. And there are some watchdogs in here. Guiding fails after no step data for so much time. So there are watchdogs in here that says, hey, a lot of it probably is associated with clouds, or you just lose your guide star. And then watchdog will retry things several times, and then abort the sequence. Planetarium software, again, I use SkyX, so there was really nothing I needed to set up here. I actually just updated SkyX with the plate solve with the GSC database from the Gaia space catalog, and so I didn't want to redo all of that. And so I said, no, go ahead and use ImageLink within SkyX. And so So all my plate solves are being done with the Gaia database. You set how long you want your plate solve exposures. These are all pretty self-explanatory settings. Focusing, again, you have your choice. Focus Max, Max DL, RoboFire, the SkyX, at Focus 3. I don't know anybody who still uses at Focus 2, but again, I started off using Focus Max, and boy, Focus Max was slow in comparison. And so RoboFire was much faster, and I got every bit, if not better, results. And so, this section here, you set it up, you build there's a V curve wizard, just like in Focus Max, and you can actually do a test, test your V curve, and one of the nice things that, boy, I just never realized how good life could be was Voyager finds, I set up, you set up what magnitude stars you want to use for each filter. And Voyager just automatically goes and does a plate solve on where you're at, finds the proper magnitude star, slews your telescope, does the focus, and then slews back, right? I mean, how sweet is that? And so I never have to now pick out the optimal focusing star. So I'm always in the right magnitude for the appropriate filter that I'm using.
Hey, Dennis, just so I understand, so RoboFire is more closer to how Focus Max worked, where you
Absolutely.
you have to do your V curves ahead of teach it.
Yeah, as part of your setup, you have to generate your V curve library. Yep.
Okay.
In fact, it works. In fact, if you look at the setup dialog, and where you're setting your maximum deviation from what range of settings, and what half max diameters, that type of thing. It's all the same as in Focus Max.
And it's been a long time. Is that for every filter you have to set that up?
No,
it's just
any
filter.
Yeah, you're characterizing now I focus on every, on, especially for broadband filters, I refocus on every filter. I don't refocus when I move from S2 and hydrogen alpha. They're so close in wavelength. Your critical focus zone is, despite what people believe, is a function of wavelength, and so green is far enough away from your O3 is far enough away from your H alpha, where you really do need to refocus with when you're going from H alpha to O3.
Dennis,
Yeah.
Do you have to slew to a star?
No, I do nothing. It
do an automatic slew to a star of your preferred magnitude in order to focus, or does it focus on just the existing star field that you're imaging?
Yeah. Okay. So that's actually why I actually use predominantly the single star focusing. With single star focusing, it does slew and does a plate solve, and actually goes to the exact magnitude that I ask for. Now there is a local field, so once you've slewed to the object, it'll actually do a multi-field focus, and it'll try and do a focus on multiple stars within the same field of view. I found that to be not as good.
Yeah.
I get better focus numbers with with a single star, and it's faster. So it's a lot faster, you know, as well. Okay. So the rest of this is, you know, out of my wheelhouse. I don't have a rotator. I don't have well, I have a flat panel, but it's not intelligent. I have to physically set everything up. Don't have any dome control. I don't have any weather station. But boy, under weather, you can, you know, set up all these different, you know, what you want to do if there's clouds, you know, when you should, you know, how cloudy. So if it's clear, obviously you're going to be okay and you're going to resume. If it gets cloudy, you're going to suspend. And if it's very cloudy, you're just going to exit, right? And same thing with rain and, you know, and all, you know, light pollution and so on and so forth. I don't have any of these sensors, nor do I have a weather station. I mean, that's the next thing on my Christmas list and things to do. But so I haven't really, and you know, I don't have any interfaces to any, you know, observing, you know, software or monitoring stations.
Hey, Dennis, I missed. I know you leverage SkyX for your planetarium software. Is a planetarium software required, or can you have not have one?
No, it's not. Yeah, Gabe, I don't think it's required. In fact, I don't.
No, it's not. Yeah,
Okay.
I run my systems without it. So.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, that's where I was going. Like the functionality you just described, right, where it knows where a nearby star is of the certain magnitude that you asked for. It must have some sort of internal database to reference.
Oh yeah, well it does a plate solve. And then knows where it's at, and then you know, slews to the appropriate magnitude star.
Yeah, I know, but just to know that a 6.5 magnitude star is just over there, it must have some sort of database it's using internally.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And sometimes I'm wondering, gosh, what is it doing? And you know, sometimes it has to move, you know, a little ways before it finds the appropriate star.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but then it comes back, and you know, everything is wonderful. So you know, so all of this is just kind of like a one-time thing as you configure all of your hardware. And so what happens at this point, you know, everything gets put into this overall status screen here. So these, you know, this is my camera. This is, you know, the filter wheel is actually integrated into the camera add-on, so it doesn't show up as a separate entity. But here's all of my devices. And if you were just going to go run a sequence manually, all you really need to do is come into this screen and hit the connect button. You can see SkyX coming up in the background, and so what it's going to do is it's going to just turn down my cooling for the camera. And then you will actually start to see all these status boxes. It just launched PhD2, and then voila, everything is in green. I'm ready to go. Now, DragScript would do this as well. There's a command line that says the same thing as what I just did, is hit the connect button, and so now, you know, I haven't started any sequences, and I haven't told it what object I'm going to go to, but these things then get populated. And what's nice is this actually gives you a curve of what the altitude is of your object, and it gives you a progress line in here, tells you, you know, how you are moving through, you know, it's just like that little symbol or that little diagram in Telescopicus. Shows you, it actually shows you where sunset is and sunrise and the curve of your object in between, and then a line that scrolls through that says where you are in the progress. Okay. So we're all going, you know, the camera's cooling down. So I'm going to just leave this all running, and you know, and basically at this point, if you want to just do things manually, there's a cute little icon here that says on the fly, and I think that's just it. You can come in here and set up your own sequence to run. Now there's a subset, you know, within the sequence. I actually just have two sequences that I run, you know, and then I just changed the, you know, the target information, or slightly modify some of the durations, but I have two templates. So I have a narrow band. And, you know, and what it'll do is it'll set up all my narrow band filters, what my typical exposures are, and, you know, and I'll start with the, you know, like 15 each for getting started. Now within the sequence, there are additional things that you can customize that are actually saved with this particular sequence. So, you know, just general information. Where are you going to store the data from this sequence? You know, what file naming pattern, and, you know, that kind of stuff. You can set constraints. The only constraint that I have set right now is I tell it, you know, don't image below 22 degrees. But, you know, you can set all other kinds of constraints with respect to altitude, you know, your hour angle and your azimuth, and, you know, all these stuff. The only thing that's really important to me is I just don't image, you know, below you know, 20, 22, 25 degrees. When you start the sequence, you know, now again, a lot of this can be done in DragScript, but so you can actually do stuff up ahead of time, like cool the cameras down, and so you don't have to wait for this sequence to run to get things, you know, cocked and loaded. You do a pre-focus, you can start cooling your cameras down and do everything, so that when the sequence starts, it doesn't really have to do much. But, you know, for example, when I start the sequence, I obviously, you know, I want to, you know, I want to slew to the target, and then I want to insert, you know, an initial focus as soon as I get to the target, even, you know, before I start the sequence. Same thing with cooling. You can have a different cooling rate. The pointing, yeah, on pointing here on drive go through errors. Oh yeah, if you're trying to get to an object and you can't plate solve on it, it'll try 3 times, and then give up. Rotator I don't have. Tracking, basically, again, a watchdog that says if I lose, if I lose a, I'll restart, 3 times. But if I can't find a guide star, after three attempts, then I'll stop the sequence. Plate solve. I certainly don't want to disable the plate solving. That's something that's set up already in that initial setup. Meridian flip, which is really nice. Under manage, you know, I can actually go with the Paramount. I can go, and I don't push this because there are times in between sequences where it's focusing and you know the scope is marching on, right? And so one of the mistakes I made initially was that in my manual I can go 2 hours past the meridian without having to flip. And so I said, oh boy, I'm gonna go for the gusto. And I forgot about all the intermediate times, all the time it takes to do focusing, switch filters, check the temperature, you know, all these intermediate steps. And so I was always aborting long before you know, I got to where I thought I was going to be. And so, we just got, you know, because I opened up the sequence that, you know, right now I just finished IC. This is the jellyfish, IC 443. Because that has now been selected, it now tells me, you know, what the status is. This is literally the, you know, when this object has really set. Now once I start this, if I started the sequence, it would actually show me a progress bar, you know, through this graph. And so right now I conservatively I wait for 60 minutes past the meridian flip, and then if you add in all the overhead, the filter, the you know, the focusing and all the inter-exposure time stuff that you're doing, I come out pretty close to about, you know, 80, 90 minutes. And so I don't play it right to the edge anymore. So 60 minutes past the meridian it does me just fine. You know, guiding. I use the PhD too, so I don't use RoboGuide here, and so I just use the, you know, the native guide, you know, guide control. This right here, focusing. So I do use the actual filter. So when it is time, if there's a temperature change, it looks and uses. If I'm doing broadband, this is set up for narrowband. If I'm doing broadband, I basically always just focus on green for all three filters. Pick the middle of the spectrum, and that seems to do just fine for me. I do have it set up that it will automatically, after each exposure, it checks what the temperature is. And so every 1.5 degrees centigrade, you know, I launch a new focus. Okay. So now one of the really cool things here is I've got this basic setup for narrowband, and literally all I have to do is I go to this RoboClip that I talked about. And this is a database of all of the pre-configured and previously acquired, you know, objects that I've done this year. And so if I want to select something new, you know, I don't even know if it's, you know, 101, even if 101 is even up anymore. But if I select that, you know, basically that's it. You know, I hit OK, and then when I run DragScript, it calls up this sequence, and so all I really need to do is figure out whether I'm doing broadband or narrowband, select from my predetermined database of objects, and the way I go. You know, so you can do all of your planning and put everything together, you know, in advance.
There's a question that I've this is kind of cool. Can you sort that based on transit time or something so that you know what's above the horizon for you at that particular time of year? You know, does it? I
Yeah,
mean,
so
horizon, some would be ideal imaging time. And I wonder if you could possibly sort it somehow so that you could, that could happen.
boy, I don't know I do that manually in Telescopicus, but I don't know, Gabe, do you know of any mechanism to sort?
His software that he wrote.
Yeah, that could work.
Yeah,
Um,
other than your
yeah,
planning software.
yeah, my planning software can do it, but also within DragScript, within that dialog box that came up, you can sort by RA, and just know, if you have an RA that transits at midnight tonight, that's sort of your basis, and then you can subtract the hours off from that when you would expect transit for other times. That's one manual way to do it, um, but yeah, other packages like Telescopius, and you could load it up and then see it in the box, that target box on the right, or this other software that I wrote could do it too.
Mhm. Okay. All right. So what I'm gonna do here is, and yeah, I'm gonna overwrite that and say yes. Okay. And so the way I would start the way I would start the evening, I wouldn't do this manual connection here. Well, before I get to DragScript, remember I showed you that database. Literally there is, see under tools and editors here, there is, yeah, this is really just so cool. Now I haven't gotten this, so I'm going to connect to this. So now I'm running a web version of Voyager, on my local computer here. But it'll actually monitor everything that's going on with the camera. It'll show me the last image, and what the focuser is doing, what auto guiding is doing. And so what's really cool is this is a web-based version of Voyager, and within this is this ability to create to do all of your framing of your objects, and then tuck them away in a database to be used at later time. And so give you something just a little more exciting here. So like the Pelican. Okay, so here's the Pelican, and one of the things that I mentioned here is you can actually adjust the image brightness. So if you want to see more faint nebulosity, you can do that. And then you frame your image, and the database remembers all of the RA and deck information, and stores it away. You can name it whatever you want. And then when you're going to start that sequence, all you have to do is find that object in the database, and it's already been pre-planned. Now, if I wanted to do right next door here's the North America nebula. Obviously, this does not fit in. This RoboClip or this virtual field of view knows about my telescope, obviously, and so sets up my field of view here. But I can set up a mosaic here, and so that's not going to get me. So I need to do Actually, let's try this. There we go. And so, and I can set the, the recommended overlap of each of the fields, and I can save all of this so I can nicely frame this mosaic. And now I can just add this to the go to RoboClip and say, I'm going to create a new entry in my database, but I want to get the information, from my virtual field of view. And so I can just call this Pelican. And I've got a lot of this is associated with Gabe's software. That I'm going to do narrow band. It knows about my rotation of my field of view, gives me the RA and deck information. So now that I hit save, it is now in this database, and so I can do multiple objects and plan out for for the rest of the month in Telescopicus, and pick out those objects that are going to be appropriate for the month, and then put them in RoboClip here, and then just quickly have access to it in the sequence. Okay. And so this is so if I basically then go back, so let me just close this, and I can just disconnect from this web-based, and I can close this, go back into Voyager. And so I can go now into my narrowband sequence here, and basically click on RoboClip, and there's the Pelican. Okay, just double click. Cannot select a virtual field of view mosaic. Only single target objects is allowed in this. Oh, that's something new. So Gabe, how do you get mosaic information into the sequence?
So with this, you have to use there's a different type of sequence, which is like a research and survey sequence. And that sequence is usually built for like asteroid searches or supernova searches.
Okay.
But in that, it's serial, or it's like, it's grouping similar types of images that you want to take together. And that's what a mosaic would be. You're taking the same number of subs for this, certain filters, and you're going to stitch them together later. So that's why it's it forces you to use that paradigm instead of the sequence.
Okay, so that's a button up here that I have never actually. It says research and survey.
Yep.
And well, so I know nothing about this. How do you
I think the same way the gear on the lower right, you can click that and then.
There you go.
Then you can import.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a very different setup, but it's somewhat similar to a sequence.
Yeah. Okay. So import mosaic panels from RoboClip. Oh, very nice. And wow, all rows are imported. Oh, how nice. Okay, there it is. And then you set up all your filters and everything. Got it. Okay, so boy, I learned something again. I was afraid to, because I didn't want to do any research or surveying work with Voyager, but so that's how you do the mosaic. All right, very good. Well, okay, so and then here this is actually showing me that current sequence, and so we've got a lot of good imaging time on that as well. I think at this point I'm going to, yeah, I'm not gonna save that. I'm going to just kind of open things up and maybe in the last 15 minutes here, kind of ask if there's, the last thing I did want to show is see, how do I get rid of this? How do I actually close this?
Looks like a floating window. You can drag from the research and survey or mosaic bar. Yeah.
Oh, I see. And how come I can't just close it? All right, I'll just put it someplace. I just put it someplace else. All right. So the last thing I wanted to show is, so before I get started for the evening, I already went into that sequence, loaded up my narrowband sequence, picked out my object. So now the sequence is ready to go. And then the last thing I need to do is I just have one, what I call production. This was actually Gabe's script that I learned from. And so I just have one production script, and literally all I change in this script is we're in the part of this sequence is the block sequence. Sequence starts immediately. Oh yeah, no, I can't edit it here. So what I do is I just open up the editor. You know, what happened? Where is the editor? I think I'm having problems with, it's underneath Zoom. Okay, let me bring it over here. And so what I did was just edit the script that I just loaded. And this is the actual editor. So I just come down for, this particular here, and then I just look for the, whether I'm going to be doing narrowband or LGB work. And that's all I really change. So if I'm just doing narrowband, then there's actually nothing that I have to do. I just open up this script. It goes ahead and gets my narrowband script that I've already put in the object. No. And so this was my first script, first and only one. It's very, very basic. And again, I just, waiting for astronomical sunset. Here's my initial setup. I home my scope. So these are all, cool down the camera. So these basically is Dragon script version of that little block diagram that I showed you at the initial part of the presentation. Very, very simple. And like I said, when you're actually in the editor, you just double click on a line and it pops up a little dialog box and basically tells you how to set everything for that particular line of script. So you don't need to know any coding, at all. So I'm gonna stop here. That was kind of a trying to cover everything in an hour and 15 minutes. But at this point we can open it up for questions, and I'm sure Gabe can answer every one of them.
Dennis, this is Nolan. I watched Voyager remotely with a friend who has this set up in northern Wisconsin.
Mhm.
And one thing I noticed compared to Sequence Generator Pro, it seemed like with SGP, if you wanted to change your sequence on the fly, you can add very quickly, add more exposures or
Mhm.
change it pretty easily. And I got the sense from him, maybe it's just he didn't know how to do it, that that wasn't the case with Voyager. You were, if you did that, you had to sort of stop the whole sequence and reprogram it or change something in it versus it's, having it happen on the fly.
Yeah, so Gabe, I think answered that question before. What I do, and it is certainly not on the fly, is I will pause or abort DragScript, and then make the change and then rerun it.
And I missed the very beginning of, so DragScript is something within Voyager, or is that something ancillary?
Oh no, it is native to Voyager.
Okay, thank you.
And I think Sequence Generator Pro has something like it now. They call it some kind of advanced sequence generator, kind of like a primitive version of DragScript. But they too are trying to move towards a more flexible way of generating a sequence.
Thank you.
But Gabe, I think you were asked that question before about changing a sequence on the fly, and I've not seen any way to do that.
Yeah, editing a sequence while it's running is not possible within Voyager. I think the goal for Voyager was having unattended operations, so it's not really built for you to constantly tweak internal settings and internal files and so on, like the sequence or the drag script. So you do have to abort this the sequence or the drag script and then change any settings, and you do have an option to resume from where you left off.
Yep.
So like, for example, within a drag script, you're so far into your drag script, you can choose to resume from a certain stage in that drag script. Yeah, exactly. Start script from here is what I usually run.
Right.
One thing that is that you can do on the fly while it's running is you can inject focus. And with that, there's a button, I think, in monitor maybe on the upper left. Yeah, and then there's autofocus next to injection on the third panel there. While it's running, you can inject autofocus, and then it'll finish the sub that it's running now. And then right after that, it'll start an autofocus run depending on whatever your setting is, whether it's RoboFire or the all field focus.
Well,
And I've done that occasionally. The autofocus is really good, good enough that I have only done that a few times. Usually because of my telescope is still cooling down. Maybe the garage was incredibly hot. I drug the scope out when it was still cooling down, and it had a lot of thermal effects that need to be taken care of. So that's when I would inject some autofocus or something like that. But as far as I know, that's one of the only things that you can do on the fly as it's running. Again, the purpose of Voyager is more for complete automation, which it excels at. I will say that my absolute favorite thing is RoboClip for a few selfish reasons. One is that it allowed me to build that app that I wrote. But more importantly, if I'm surfing Astrobin or some other images that I see online, I'm like, oh, I've never taken an image of that, and then I immediately go to the web dashboard and see what the framing looks like, adjust the brightness levels that Dennis was talking about, adjust the framing, and then store it to a RoboClip. And I can do that from like my phone or my iPad if I don't have to be at the computer to that controls the equipment or anything. I can just do that totally virtually. and it's stored there. And then when I'm planning my session, I can see that it's there, and then, oh yeah, I can now do this target. So I don't forget things. So with that, it's made me be a lot more productive in terms of adding new targets that I've never imaged before, or just yeah, trying new things. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, Gabe, Dennis, this is Girish. I tried actually playing with Voyager a bit. The struggle I had was with setting up focus for the first time, because I think you have to establish the V curve and stuff. And that. How did you guys go about doing it?
Okay, so did you use the wizard?
Yeah, I used the wizard.
Okay. Because that's pretty much all you know. So basically, yeah.
Do you have to change anything at all in the settings, or just go straight into the V curve first slide?
Yeah, I just went into to the you know, I had it point to the, you know, the closest, you know, focus star, but I just used this first light wizard, and you know, got a really nice V curve.
What happened in mine was it probably didn't start. It wasn't at the close to the middle, so it either, you know, it kind of ran out in between, and the star disappeared. It'll say star lost or whatever when it goes too much out of focus, right? Those kinds of things kept happening.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've done RoboFire on, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 different combinations of scopes and cameras. So I've seen a lot of different things. For the most part, it works pretty well, but I have had some issues in the past where occasionally it won't find the V curve right, and I had to go in and tweak some settings. There are some settings in there that allow you to establish the tolerance that you need for a good star to start with. Yeah, exactly. This is the setting. So that top box is the V curve parameters, and that just defines your left and right edges of the V curve. This HFD parameters, those are the ones I usually tweak. Near focus, I think from what I recall, tells you that you need a star that for calibration, I think you need a star at least that, no larger than that value in order to start calibration. And start focus is for starting the focus routine, and then the V curve limit is how far, how big the star gets in your V curve. How far out from the best focus you want.
So if it loses a star, maybe I could dial down that V curve limit then a little bit.
Yeah, usually, I mean, I have mine set to I think 20 or 30. So something in that range, up to 40 is fine. I think probably the most common issue I've had is you need to start with pretty close to focus already. Because what Voyager does is it goes in kind of blind, and it takes 1 step, and then it takes 3 steps, and then it takes, you know, it just geometrically progresses to larger and larger steps. If you're far off of focus, then you're going to not sample the V curve very well. But if you're close to focus, you're going to sample it well, and it'll allow it to define the edges of the V curve and then the slopes on the left and right. And that's why it's so fast, is because it knows those slopes, and all it has to do is sample that slope and then knows exactly where best focus is.
And it's doing that to figure out the step size, basically. Is that that's the V curve wizard exercise, basically?
Right. That's what the V curve wizard is doing, is establishing these parameters, and then once that's done, then when you're doing it live, you know, you're finding a new focus on a new star on a new night. It's very fast because it's all those measurements have been taken. It doesn't need to take it again, and it's, you know, it works for different filters too. So it's it works across.
So when you're actually focusing, once you set up the V curve, when you're actually focusing on a star, is it doing that many points, or is it just doing a few points to get to the focus?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I must have.
So once you set up the V curve, right, when you're actually imaging, if you're pointing to a star and it's trying to focus. Because in the V curve, it's obviously doing a ton of points, right? To trying to figure out the slope and all that stuff. How many points does it do for the actual focus when you're imaging then?
Right. So with the actual focus, I actually don't know because it's so quick and it doesn't really tell you how many
I see.
points it's taking. I know one thing it does is it samples. So it'll take maybe 2 or 3 measurements at this focus distance, 2 or 3 at this, you know, it does a couple of those, and then bang, all of a sudden you have a perfectly in focus star. And with my setup, it does all of this in under a minute. And it does it all in under a minute, even with narrowband, when I'm focusing a narrowband filter, which I know for other systems with focus, I guess with the older SGP, I think they revised it now so that they can do single star focusing with SGP maybe. But with the older version of SGP, when I used to use it, narrowband focusing took forever because it was doing an all frame focus, and you're not always guaranteed very bright stars on the all frame focus. But with RoboStar, it'll go to a magnitude 2 star, and it's still bright enough even with a 3 nanometer oxygen filter in front of it. It's still bright enough to resolve the shape of it and do the V curve. So it'll do that in under a minute, and then you're back to your target much faster than what I ever did with SGP before.
Focus Max had the exact same issue. If you were too far off of, you know, initial focus, so what I would end up doing is if some, you know, I was mucking with the focuser or something was really out of whack, you know, I would do, you know, manual focus just, you know, within SkyX, there's a little focus tool there that, you know, allows you to continuously sample a star. And then as long as you get it, you know, down to, you know, a half max of about 3 or 4, you know, then Focus Max would be happy. But if you started with something that was pretty far out of focus, it could never find it.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
Okay. All right.
One more thing for at least getting good starting focus. What I've done is use the local field. So that's the all frame focus routine. So if you run into the issue where you're trying to do a V curve and you can't find a good starting place, the local field mode will get you close, and then you can start a V curve. That's just a quick tip to avoid that issue where your starting place is too far away from optimal focus.
And that's for setting up for the first time you're saying, Gabe, or when you're imaging a session, you're saying at the beginning?
This is just the first time. When you're actually imaging and you're good, you know, you're rolling along, it's all very smooth. This first night of Under the Stars with Voyager, you'll have a few, you know, just like with any new software, you have a few configuration things you might need to tweak based on your own setup. To me, I think the RoboFire configuration, there are a few things that you probably will need to tweak for your system just to get a V curve. But once you have a V curve for your system, you never have to touch it again.
Got it.
Gabe, I always wondered in Focus Max, you could actually do lots of V curves and they would average them together.
Yeah, you can do that here too.
Okay, so when you say add a new V curve, it'll just you know add it to the original, average it in with the, and so it'll continually build an average.
It'll actually do more than, it'll show you all the V curves you've created. You can enable or disable different V curves.
Okay,
and it'll take the average of those that you've only enabled.
Yeah.
And that's the other complexity, because I do a lot of different extender reducer configurations, right? So I created multiple profiles in Voyager. And that's how we're supposed to do it, I think, right? Have different profiles for different combinations and do separate V curves on each profile. Yeah,
that's right.
Do you have when you build your V curve, Gabe? Do you what filter did you use?
Probably luminance, but I honestly don't think it matters.
Yeah, because I just noticed here that I used my H alpha filter to to build the V curve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, so
Yeah, it
one
shouldn't matter.
question.
The only thing filters will do is just to change the offset. It won't change the slope, unless you have some really strange filters.
Right. Right.
One question I had, I know Dennis, you're probably maybe not familiar with this because you don't run into this issue, but if you have multiple setups, is that under the profile, I'm guessing, where you can store multiple equipment profiles?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a right now I just have obviously one setup, but yeah, you can actually go through and set up multiple. And I assume, Gabe, you have a profile for each telescope, right?
Yeah, I have a whole list of profiles that I've used in the past and use now.
Mhm. And basically, the profile is all the V settings under setup, right?
Yeah.
So the stuff under sequence, you know, the unique adjustments that you do within the sequence, that's actually not contained within the profile. Because you can have dozens of different sequences under the same same profile.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, guys, if I can figure this out and if I could use it, I think that's a testimony just in and of itself. I tell you, you know, again, 4 months and 2 days, and I have yet to been able to crash this system. It has been rock solid, and I've made a lot.
Surprisingly stable for me.
It's very stable, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what I was doing wrong in Sequence Generator Pro, but you know, I would have a crash or a hang up almost every night.
Yeah. That was one of the big reasons I switched from SGP. I used SGP for about 3 years before I switched to Voyager, and I would get it was strange where I would get crashes every other night, and I just wouldn't understand why. I would come out to roll my stuff back into the garage at dawn and find that it's still, you know, pointing up to the sky and not parked or anything. And then I'd realize that I probably wasted half the night just pointing up at the sky and not collecting any data because SGP crashed or the computer itself crashed or something. But I've never had anything like that happen with Voyager. It's been pretty remarkable.
SGP, and I'm pretty happy with it. I have not had the issues that you're referring to. Maybe they've worked the bugs out of it. But what I don't like is the focusing. I just hate it. It's terrible. It wastes too much time. But there's no question I'm going to switch to Voyager, and it seems to be where things are headed, and it just looks better, you know. But I appreciate, Dennis, what you're doing here, and when I'm making the transition, I'll sure pick your brains or ask you to.
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to help.
Yeah.
All righty. So anything else?
You know, the only thing I kind of asked this question just, at the onset was that they do seem to say they promise updates for a year, and I get the impression that there is a fee if you want to continue to get updates after 1 year. Now, Gabe, you've had it for over a year. Have you been? Is there anything like that exists or?
Yeah, so I have upgraded just because I believe in supporting Leo. He's been doing a tremendous job with the software. And
Mhm.
again, I'll echo what Dennis has said, where he, you put in a request, and if he thinks it aligns with the goals of the software, he will put it in. And within a week, there's a release that has what you asked for in there. He's not going to answer to every request, but if it's if it's with the goals where he wants the software to go, then it'll be in there really quickly. And he's very responsive too. So,
Is there, did they ask for a fee after a period of a year, and how much is it?
right. So the upgrade fee, well, it's not an upgrade fee. It's more like a renewal of your license, so that you can download the latest and greatest version. It will never be disabled, so you can install it on your computer, and after a year happens, it'll just have that expiration of the support of the software.
And what's the
So, for
renewal
example,
cost?
I'm trying to remember what it was. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
just,
I can look it up.
just,
That's all right. We can check it.
I mean, SGP is doing the same thing right now, and
Yeah.
Everybody's doing it now.
and you don't mind, I guess. I mean, I feel like I'm getting my money's worth, and I want to contribute. As long as they keep improving the software, that's terrific. More power to them.
Mhm.
I mean, the one thing that was holding me back was that PhD2 profile thing, and which I think they added now. I haven't tried out yet, of course.
Yeah, ever since day one, I've been using PhD2 for guiding. Let's see the cost. €29.
Okay, that was
So it's reasonable.
Yeah, for 1 year update, and that adds that 2-call support thing again. Yeah, so well, that's
Yeah,
pretty reasonable.
comparison. I don't know. I haven't renewed like the Sky. Do you renew Sky, Dennis?
I have not since they made it.
It's too much, right? I mean, €29 is reasonable, but
What I don't even know what the renewal is for Sky. Is it $100?
I don't know. I mean, you pay an arm and a leg for the software to begin with,
Right.
and
Right.
then
I think it is $100, Dennis.
$100.
You get it automatically, don't you? Because you have a Paramount mount or something.
Well, I did for 7 years.
well, they went to the subscription now.
And that just changed, and doggone it, I just missed the last daily build, because I tried to, when I got the announcement, I tried doing the current daily build, and it said, nah, sorry. So
It's still a hell of a piece of software. The SkyX is amazing. I'm just wow.
Yep. Yeah, I'll be tied to it for a long time. With T-point and all my polar alignment, and
Sure.
boy, it's I'm just glad Voyager works so well with it.
Yeah, so we have tons of money wrapped up into our gear. The software component is actually a very small slice of the pie
Right.
for
That's
getting
a
an
good
image.
point.
So, yeah.
Excellent point.
There's one additional feature, well, I guess an extension of Voyager that that's out there as well, which allows you to control multiple systems with one with Voyager. So it's called the array system, and it allows you to do, yeah, exactly. So this portion here, it allows you to do simultaneous imaging through multiple telescopes on one mount, and it'll coordinate things like dither and guiding and autofocus among all those systems. And I haven't used it yet. I have a license for it, but I haven't used it yet. My plans are this summer to get something like this up and running for one of my setups.
Wow.
But the people that I've talked to that have used it loved it because it just, it's just like Voyager native, with one system, it just works and it works well. And I'm not saying, this is obviously not for everyone, but it is another option if you want to,
Say it again, Gabe.
to do something like this.
It's to run multiple rigs or multiple telescopes on one mount.
There are two different flavors. One license for this will get you both. You can have one centralized coordination system for 2 mounts and 2 completely different systems.
Yeah.
The other way is that one mount can control, or one array system can have, like the example in this observatory on the left. If you click that, it'll expand. This array system will control these 4 telescopes and coordinate dither and autofocus on all of them, so that the system knows that, okay, I'm in an autofocus routine. Let's autofocus all 4 of these telescopes at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, they're all done. Let's go back. Let's point back to the main system and then continue.
The first scenario makes sense. It'll be a while before
we
get to something like this.
Well, I mean, some people can do this too. You could use a piggyback system or side-by-side system, and that's not like a crazy high-end system like this. It's something that anybody with a guide scope, they could turn their guide scope into an imaging scope and then put an off-axis guider, and so that's sort of a minimal upgrade to the system they already have.
Or I mean, if you're interested, you could run a DSLR help piggyback on your scope and do a wide field and then a close field.
Exactly. Yeah. And so my viewpoint is that in Wisconsin we have really lousy weather, so just take advantage of the nights that are good, and this is one way to do it. So I've been tooting that horn for a while, but I think I still hold firm to it.
Pretty soon you'll have like 20 telescopes on your driveway because you got
It's
one
my plan.
clear night. You got one clear night this week, and you're like, I'm taking advantage of it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get 320 clear nights a week somehow here, or a year somehow.
That's how you do it. Yeah.
Actually, I had looked at this Astro Haven clamshell. Boy, and I really wish I had bought it, but obviously expense wise, it was 3 times the cost of what I had. For a 7-foot version of this was close to 10 grand.
Wow.
Yeah. But that include full automation and motorized and but yeah, I wish I had something like that now, versus the $2,500 that I paid, so it was literally 4 times.
You probably wore a path in the grass out to your observatory every time you turn that dome, right?
Yeah. So, all right. Well, like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to email Gabe. Sorry, Gabe.
Ask Jeff a couple of questions about SGP, but now's not the time.
Yeah. Okay. Go.
All right. Thanks, Dennis.
All right. Good. Hopefully it was helpful.
Thank you. Take care. Good night.
Have a good night, everyone.